Hi there. Hello again. Jeffrey Johnson here, Westlake High School, classroom 408 here in Johnson Land, ready to rock Act 3, Scene 2. This is probably the scene that most is really meant for the stage, not for the page. This really isn't something that Uncle Will meant for us to read. More so it was something to be seen because there's so much going on with the play within the play. But it's a very, very important scene, and it's a good scene. And I hope this can be a useful video to you, whether this is your first time trying to read this because you were out, or even if you were in class, maybe this could be a good review just because of the dynamics of the scene. I'm going to roll through it fairly quickly, even though it is a good number of pages. It covers a lot of things going on with the play inside of our play. And I think I can take you where you need to be if you'll stay with me, and I'll try not to make this video too dang long. Begins on page 57. The first thing you see on page 57, Act 3, Scene 2, is Hamlet giving some advice to the actors before they go out on stage, like they need his advice. He says, do not saw the air too much with your hands. Just know the speaker for your Act 3 test. He's telling them, it's distracting if you talk with your hands too much, kind of like I do sometimes. Excuse me, there's a lot of blah, blah, blah on that page, giving them advice. Over on page 58, there's just a couple lines. Hamlet says toward the bottom of the page, Horatio, thou art Ian is just a man, as ever my conversation coped withal. He's basically just complimenting Horatio on being so kind of steadfast. He's consistent. Hamlet himself thinks he's very emotional. He restates that. If you look on page 59, let's see, about the 10th line down, starting toward the end of the line, Hamlet says, give me that man. I suggest that you mark about 10 lines from right there. Starting with give me that man, going down to observe my uncle. Hamlet says a couple of things here of consequence. Give me that man that is not passion slave. I will wear him in my heart's core. I am heart of heart, as I do thee. And then he says something too much of this. It's very uncomfortable to talk about these things. He's trying to tell Horatio he admires him. He loves him. And as a man, that's maybe a little difficult for him to say, not to fit into the stereotype of not being in touch with our emotions necessarily. But, tough guy. He tells Horatio, man, I wish I could be more like you. I'm like a ping pong ball sometimes, emotional. I'm from one thing to the next, and you are more consistent. You're more steadfast, he says. And then he mentions something that's really for our benefit. They've already talked about this, but he reminds Horatio of it. One scene of it comes near, there's a play tonight before the king. One scene of it comes near the consequence which I have told thee of my father's death. I pray thee, when thou seest that act afoot, even with the very comment of thy soul, observe my uncle. Horatio, when we get in there to watch the play, you and I won't sit together. I'll sit somewhere where I think I have a good view of the king. You sit somewhere else where you think you have a good view of the king. When the act on stage takes place, the actor pretending to pour poison in someone's ear, for example, we need to see his reaction. And if I can't see him from where I'm sitting because I get blocked, maybe you'll be able to see him, or if you can't see him, vice versa, then maybe I'll be able to see him. But one of us needs the look on his face when the act takes place on stage. Bottom page 59, everybody comes in. It's a big to-do. It's the king and the queen and all the attendants, and it's just really a big night to watch this play. At the top of page 60, there's a quote. Just know the speaker, Polonius, says, I did enact Julius Caesar. I was killed in the Capitol. Brutus killed me. For the purposes of your test, just know that Polonius said it, but it's interesting that Polonius claims that when he was at university all those years ago, he played the role of Julius Caesar. This is such a Will Shakespeare giving himself a shout out because the year before Hamlet had hit the stage, I believe it was the year before, is when Julius Caesar had hit the stage, and it was a very popular play. And he mentions his own play in his play because he could do that because he's, William Shakespeare. I suggest you mark 19 lines. Most of them are very short. It starts with come hither, and it's this exchange between Hamlet and his mother, and then Hamlet and Ophelia. When he comes in, the queen says, come hither, my dear Hamlet. Sit by me. He says, no, good mother, here's metal more attractive. Instead of sitting by you, I'd rather sit by Ophelia. Now remember, the last scene that we had between those two, and just in the previous scene of the play, was him being very harsh with her and telling her, I didn't give you any letters, I did love you, I never loved you, you should get to a nunnery. He's just saying all these terrible things to her, and now he shows up at the play, and he's in a very lighthearted mood, and he goes and sits by her. And he says, oh, ho, do you mark that? He goes to Ophelia, and he says, lady, shall I lie in your lap? No, my lord. I mean my head upon your lap. Aye, my lord. You think I meant country matters? Country matters is kind of the expression for intercourse. I think nothing, my lord. She's trying to play it off. She's trying to take everything kind of with a grain of salt, as the expression goes, to not let it upset her too much because she's seen how he is and she believes that he's in madness. And she says, I think nothing, my lord. He said, this fair thought lie between maid's legs. What is, my lord? Nothing. You are married, my lord. Who, I? I, my lord. He says all that. He's talking about, he's making these sexual comments to her. Just very awful, awful thing to do to her at this point. But the build up to it is him to say this, and it gives us some important information, but it also is a chance for him to say something aloud to further take shots at his mother. He says, oh God, you're only jigmaker. What should a man do? Be married. For look you how cheerfully my mother looks. My father died within 2 hours. And he makes sure when he says that, typically when you see this presented on screen or on stage, he's speaking loud enough for his mother to hear him. He's even looking right at her. And she tells us, nay, 'tis twice 2 months, my lord. No, your father's not been dead for 2 hours. He's been dead for 4 months. Nay, 'tis twice 2 months. This gives us a pretty interesting time frame that as the story has gone on, we haven't known exactly how many days and weeks have passed, but we're at the point now where it's been 4 months since his father passed away, and if anything, all this, needing some evidence, Hamlet was orchestrated this play within the play so he could know for sure the ghost was telling him the truth before he went and got revenge on Claudius. Well, we're here now, and in 4 months in, it's time to get that done. Maybe look on page 61 as we go through the top of the page. There's a description of a lot of stuff you don't need with a dumb show. Basically, mimes come out and mime some things. And then even when the guy comes out to do the little prologue, a little introduction, bottom of page 61, 3 lines. It's the prologue or the posy of a ring. 'Tis brief, my lord, says Ophelia. And Hamlet says, as woman's love. Hamlet's like, is this going to take forever? She's like, no, it's brief, it's short. And he takes another shot, which is really a shot at his mother. But again, he just seems to say it toward all women. Women's love is brief. Over on page 62, just in the middle of the page, the actor king and actor queen, they're called the player king and player queen, the players are the actors. Middle of the page, oh, confound the rest, such love must needs be treason in my breast. In second husband, let me be accursed, none wed the second, but who killed the first. And then Hamlet says, wormwood, wormwood. Those 5 lines I think are useful. Basically, the queen steps up in the play and says, man, I can't imagine marrying somebody that killed my husband. That would be the worst. And for Hamlet to hear that queen say that on stage and to everybody else just watching, this is just a play. It's actors and acting and whatnot. Hamlet says wormwood, wormwood. That's another word for bitter. That's very bitter. The bitterness of having to hear that in context of what's really happened. Or what the ghost has told him has happened. Bottom of page 63, Madam, how like you this play? Queen says, the lady doth protest too much, methinks. I think she's going on and on about her love too much. And Hamlet says, oh, but she'll keep her word, as if to take another shot at her. Top page 64, the play is actually called The Murder of Gonzago, but Hamlet has altered it a little bit. And when the king asks him what the play is called, he says, The Mousetrap, as if indication here is he's trying to catch a rat, because he's trying to catch the king in something. When Lucianus comes out on stage, Hamlet has orchestrated it. The character that's pouring poison in someone's ear isn't a brother, it's a nephew. And again, the nephew to the king is Hamlet. So he says, this is Lucianus, one nephew to the king. And then at the bottom of the page, it really goes down. You see the stage directions, maybe mark just the last 5 lines of the page. Pours poison in the sleeper's ear. He poisons him in the garden for his estate. His name's Gonzago. The story is extant and written in very choice Italian. You shall see anon how the murderer gets the love of Gonzago's wife. Hamlet really could just be quiet and watch what's happening on stage, but he just can't help himself. He's so excited, and he kind of narrates as it happens. And he mentions that the murderer is going to get the love of the dead person's wife. And at that moment, the king rises. He just stands up. First 4 lines on page 65 are very much worth watching. What? Frighted with false fire? And your footnote tells you that's like a shot, a discharge of blank shots. These aren't real bullets, basically. You're frighted with false fire? This is just a play. It's just a story. How fares my lord, says the queen. Go over the play. And immediately the king stands up and says, give me some light, away. And he banishes everyone from the room. Now, basically what he does as the king is calls for the lights to come up, kind of dismisses that the play is over, and says, everybody get out. And everybody in the room, or almost everybody in the room, is wondering what in the heck is going on at this moment? Why did we were just settling to watch the play, and all of a sudden it's over, and the king banishes us, and then he runs out, and everybody's just standing there, and the only two people probably that know why this is happening is Hamlet and Horatio, because they have this information about what the ghost said. After everybody scatters and scampers out and whatnot, and all this is going on, it's kind of chaos. Hamlet is so relieved, and even on the radio play that we're using in class, you can hear the tone of his voice is so light, and he's just so pleased with himself, and he's so happy that he has the evidence, he has the proof that he's needed all this time about his father really being murdered by his uncle. He mentions, I'll take the ghost's word for £1,000, down in the middle of page 65. I believe the ghost is telling the truth. And he's just got what he needs to know that now he can take his revenge because he has evidence. This wasn't Satan trying to trick him with an evil spirit, trying to talk him into committing a murder so he could lose his own soul. This is really his father saying, that's how I died and I want revenge. At this point, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in. After everybody ran out, they run back in. They've been sent in by the queen. On page 17, there's this whole conversation about your mother has sent us to you. She wants to see you. You must go to her chamber and talk to her right now. And he says, okay, I'll go see my mother. And they press him. Tell us what's going on. Why are you acting this way? And he tells them, it's comical to even say this in the middle of the page, I can't make you a wholesome answer. My wit's disease. I can't tell you what's wrong with me. I'm crazy. Of course, if you're actually insane, you might not would be aware of your own insanity. But he's so totally screwing with these guys. He's just messing with them. I think it'd be beneficial to you to mark the last 6 lines on page 66. Again, as they press him, he just continues to tell them what they already believe. Good Lord, what is your cause of distemper? You surely do bar the door on your own liberty if you deny your griefs to your friend. He says, sir, I lack advancement. I didn't get to become king. How can that be when you have the voice of the king himself for your succession in Denmark? These gentlemen have been kind of convinced, or they believe, that the reason Hamlet has slipped into the state that he's in is he didn't get to be king. And he tells them, that's right, I didn't get to be king. I lack advancement. I didn't get to advance. He's just telling them what they want to hear because he will not. He's never going to give them a straight answer. In fact, if you look over at page 67, I would mark about 15 lines starting with, I do not well understand that. As everyone's scurrying about and there's musicians running off, Hamlet decides to make another point with these two gentlemen, and he grabs hold of a recorder. A recorder, if you're not aware, many of you know what a recorder is probably, but it's like a little flute-like instrument. And Hamlet grabs one from someone and takes it and uses it in his conversation with Guildenstern, but in essence, this is really with both these gentlemen. Again, when you're talking to one, you're kind of talking to both. When one of them is talking, it's like both of them are talking in this particular story. 15 lines starting with, I do not well understand that, going down to the line that says, stop, she would pluck the heart out of my mystery. I do not well understand that. Will you play upon this pipe? Hamlet takes the recorder and sticks it in Guildenstern's face. My lord, I cannot. I pray you. Believe me, I cannot. I do beseech you. Beseech means to beg. I beg you, play this flute. I know no touch of it, my lord. It is as easy as lying, which he believes these two men are doing. Govern these advantages with your fingers and your thumb. Give it breath with your mouth, and it will discourse most eloquent music. Look you, these are the stops. These I cannot command any utterance of harmony. I have not the skill. And that's the point Hamlet was trying to make. These last 3 lines of that little speech are useful. Why, look you now, how unworthy a thing you make, of me. You would play upon me. You would seem to know my stops. You would pluck out the heart of my mystery. Just like you can't play upon this pipe, you can't play upon me. And then you have a quote there at the end of that speech that's already pre-marked. Call me what instrument you will, you cannot, though you fret me, you cannot play upon me. Call me what instrument you will, you can't play me. Basically, and this is maybe worthy of discussion at some point on the Act 3 test. Look, just like you can't play the recorder, you can't play me. Just like you can't get any sound, a sweet sound out of this flute, you're not going to get any sound out of me. Him saying this quote is basically his way of saying to them, he compares himself to the flute, to the recorder, and says, you're not going to get any sound from me. You're not getting any information. I'm not going to tell you anything. You're not going to get anything from me that you can take back to Claudius and serve your purpose. It's like he knows that they're being paid to spy on him. We don't know exactly how much he knows, but it's clear. It is clear that he knows these guys are being used by the king and the queen, and that's something that Hamlet kind of calls them on. So you're not going to get anything. You're not going to get anything from me. And then Polonius comes in, and Hamlet continues to mess with him. Hey, look, that cloud, it looks like a camel. Oh, no, it looks like a weasel. And he just keeps on, oh, it looks like a whale. He won't really give him a straight answer, but basically he says, top page 68, I will come to my mother by and by. I'll go. I know my mother summoned me. They told me. You're telling me. I'll go. I'll go talk to my mother. And that will be in an upcoming scene, the confrontation scene that he has with his mother. Last thing, though, it's a very short soliloquy, but it's a very important soliloquy. I highly suggest you mark about 5 lines right after exeunt all but Hamlet. After everybody leaves the stage, Hamlet says, "'Tis now the very witching time of night, when churchyards yawn and hell itself breathes out contagion to this world. Now could I drink hot blood and do such bitter business as the day would quake to look on." He has had weeks at this point, months even, of not really taking any action. And at this moment, after everybody kind of leaves and he has a moment to gather his thoughts, he says to the audience, he says to us, at this moment, I could get this thing done. 'Tis now the very witching time of night. Now I could drink hot blood. If Claudius were standing right here, not only could I kill him, but I could make it bloody. I could do it. My father asked me for revenge. I got my evidence. I could do it. But first, I have to go speak to my mother. In your last quote, you have pre-marked there, just know the speaker of it. He says, "Let me be cruel, not unnatural. I will speak daggers to her, but use none." He fully intends to say a lot of things to his mother. He's been wanting to say, kind of needing to say for all this time, but he does not intend to hurt her. I will speak daggers, but I will use none. That, my friends, is Act 3, Scene 2. I hope this has been useful to you in your study of Hamlet. Again, a very important scene, though it's just the play within the play. It's a scene that's really meant for the stage. It's meant to be seen. It's really not meant for the page. So I hope this was helpful to you. Thanks very much for spending the time to watch and listen to this. I hope it's useful to you. And okay, bye.